So we've talked on the channel about the classic example of ranged fighting game archetypes, the amply named Zoner. Zoners are usually characters known for spamming projectiles to control space while also distancing themselves from their opposition as they poke them down safely from afar. But what about the ranged characters who, rather than just poking and kiting opponents out slowly, are also looking to capitalize on certain key situations that allow for a more explosive follow-up potential? Enter what the fighting game genre would call a set play character. Set play is utilizing a particular tool or setup on your opponents, primarily once you've knocked them down, that can lock them into a state of having limited defensive options. Timed and spaced correctly, these setups can force your adversary into an ambiguous guessing game of how they will try to defend. They either choose right and get to live on to another day, or choose wrong and eat whatever combo payoff that you've managed to cook up. Coupling this idea along with some other key abilities to pay off situational knowledge and planning is where I propose League's Lady of Luminosity could step on into the spotlight. So let's take a few minutes to explain why it is I think Lux could be changed to fit this mold and see how we can convert her kit over into Riot's fighting game. Starting things off is Lux's passive, Illumination. Lux's damaging spells charge the target with energy for a short duration. Her next attack then ignites the energy, dealing bonus magic damage to the target. In League, this can be a great way to optimize damage by weaving between landing a key ability, auto-attacking to proc Illumination, then rinse repeating on your other abilities to keep chunking your opponents down. And I think this would carry over surprisingly well. As a comparison, Kai in Guilty Gear Strive has a similar mechanic that adds a shock state to his opponents when landing certain key abilities. Hitting with his other abilities while they are in this state will add bonus properties to the move, such as higher flat damage, or even better on-hit effects. Adding these additional properties to Lux's existing damage increase can be an excellent way to pay off landing that big hit, then moving into the appropriate follow-up to maximize Illumination and Lux's damage efficiency. Speaking of those big hits, next we move into her Q, Light Binding. Lux releases a Spear of Light in a line that binds enemies in place on contact. Landing a key Q is an excellent way to hold your opponent in place, making it trivial to continue into Lux's follow-up damage. And while it may on the surface seem a bit much to propose a full-on stun for a fighting game, the idea of freezing your opponent in place really isn't as rare as it might initially seem. My intention here to balance it out would be a higher recovery time, so you'll need to plan ahead and use it at the right moment to capitalize on an opening. Otherwise, risk leaving yourself as the one open for a punishment follow-up. But of course, the reward for landing this snaring hit speaks for itself, giving Lux the very same free combo follow-up on a fully defenseless opponent. Moving into W brings us to Prismatic Barrier. Lux throws her wand and bends the light around any friendly targeted touches, protecting them from enemy damage for a short duration. This one's pretty straightforward. The barrier adds a shield on both Lux and allied champions as her wand contacts them, both as it passes them and as it returns back to Lux's position, acting as a quick damage sponge to help turn the tide of battle. But I think we could shift this around just a bit for its projectile equivalent. Rather than just being a defensive tool while Lux is the active character, this wand throw could also be one of her set play abilities by being a boomerang style projectile. The throw would damage opponents on impact as well as on the way back, so Lux could set up a potential follow-up if timed correctly to hit the enemy alongside the wand's return. Then as a separate ability, we could pay homage to League's defensive version by giving Lux a new wand twirl barrier that knocks back enemy projectiles. And while we're on the subject of brand new abilities, I'd also add another close proximity light burst that could act as Lux's anti-air option, as well as a great tool for combo extensions. But up next, the real set play staple, we arrive at Lux's E, Lucent Singularity. Lux fires an anomaly of twisted light to an area which slows nearby enemies. She can then detonate it to damage enemies within range. This is typically Lux's best starting ability in Poke due to its wide AoE detonation. It can also be a great way to start her offense by clipping the enemy with this slowing effect and making it easier to connect with a quick Q to finish off your opposition from there. Not only could the Projectile version mirror that same idea of using this to poke down opponents in a large area, this is also the meat of where that set play styling could really shine by pressuring your victims as they rise from a knockdown state. Lux could throw out Lucent Singularity timed to detonate as the opponent wakes up to lock them into blocking the blast and giving Lux an opportunity to mix them up. If they guess right, they get to break away and things go back to neutral, but if they guess wrong and block incorrectly, Lux gets another opening for massive follow-up damage. Lastly, we arrive at Lux's R and ultimate ability, Final Spark. After gathering energy, Lux fires a beam of light that deals damage to all targets in the area. This is Lux's massive ranged laser ability used to snipe her victims from afar with this highly damaging blast. So of course we make this a full screen hitting super, maybe in a beam style to hit multiple times for a larger duration, which could add some extra dramatic flair and blast your opponents into oblivion. But those are just a few of my ideas for the champion. As always, let me know in the comments down below what you thought of them and what other ideas you might have for Lux and Riot's fighting game. Thanks as always for watching, and catch you on the next video.